There are paintings you look at once, and there are paintings that never let you go. The Isle of the Dead is one of them. A small boat gliding over a dark, silent sea, a figure in white, a coffin beside her, ahead, an island of cypress trees, standing like sentinels of eternity. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shock, it just waits. And the longer you stare, the more you feel it watching you back. Arnold Böcklin was obsessed with death, not as an ending, but as a landscape. He believed that death was not destruction, but a passage, a journey across still water. When he painted the Isle of the Dead, he had just buried his daughter. He said nothing for days. Then he painted this. He didn't paint grief, he painted silence. And in that silence, something eternal was born. Every element in the painting moves slowly. The oars barely disturb the surface. The white figure stands still, as if she already knows. There's no need to hurry. The water is not the sea. It's the border between worlds. Life and death are not enemies here. They're reflections of each other, folded like two sides of the same wave. The island itself feels alive. The cypress trees rise like columns in a forgotten temple. Between them, narrow paths lead to stone vaults, tombs that breathe. It's not a graveyard. It's a waiting room. The island doesn't mourn, it receives. And the silence isn't emptiness. It's acceptance. Böcklin once said he wanted the viewer to feel the same stillness as the dead. Not fear, not sadness, just a peace so deep that time itself stops breathing. That's why the sea doesn't move, why the figure doesn't turn, why the island never changes. Because it's not a place you leave, it's a place you become. When the Isle of the Dead was first shown, people couldn't explain why they couldn't look away. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't comforting, but it was magnetic. Sigmund Freud called it a painting of the subconscious. Rachmaninoff wrote a symphony about it. Hitler hung it in his office. They all felt the same pull, a fascination that smelled like eternity. Because Böcklin didn't paint death. He painted the desire to understand it. Every detail is deliberate. The cypress trees, ancient symbols of mourning. The rocky walls, the bones of the earth. The narrow opening between them. A mouth that swallows a soul. The woman in white, life. The coffin beside her, death. But they share the same boat, the same direction, the same silence. It's not a confrontation. It's a reunion. In the end, the Isle of the Dead is not about what happens after death. It's about what happens before. The calm before the end, the silence before the last breath. Böcklin painted that fragile balance, the moment where fear becomes acceptance, and grief turns into peace. That's why people see different things in it. To some, it's an ending. To others, it's home. The Isle of the Dead spread like a whisper through Europe. Reproductions hung in parlors and hospitals, in military offices. People stared at it for hours, as if it promised something the church never could, peace without judgment. It became more than art. It became a ritual, a silent prayer for those who had no faith, but still hoped that death was not an ending, just a passage home. Freud kept the reproduction in his study. He said the island represented the unconscious, a place where the forgotten goes to sleep. The water is the mind. The boat is memory. The white figure, the ego carrying the dead. And the island is everything we fear, but cannot live without. Rachmaninoff heard it too. The slow rhythm of the oars became the heartbeat of his Isle of the Dead symphony. Even music began to sound like mourning. Böcklin painted 5 versions of the Isle of the Dead, each one darker, quieter, closer to his own ending. He said it followed him, like a dream that refused to die. When he grew old and ill, he asked for one last canvas. He painted the Isle of Life, a mirror image full of light. But no one remembers it, because death has a better memory than life. Who is she, the figure in white? A widow? A mourner? The soul itself? Böcklin never said. He left her nameless, a reflection of anyone who dares to look long enough. Some say it's his daughter, the one he lost before painting this. Others think it's death, but not as an angel, not as a reaper, as a guide, dressed in light, leading us gently across the dark water. Maybe she is both. Maybe she is us. There is no heaven in this painting, no hell, only stillness, infinite, patient, honest. That's why it frightens some and comforts others, because it tells a truth we rarely face, that death is not a punishment, but a release from noise. Every time you look at it, you can hear the silence breathing, and in that silence, you realize how loud life really is. Death is not the end of movement. It's the return to rhythm. The oars, the water, the island, they are all one motion. Böcklin once said that all souls eventually drift toward stillness. Not punishment, not paradise, just rest. And maybe that's why the painting feels familiar, because deep down, we've all seen this place before. In dreams, in silence, in the moment between two heartbeats. He painted death and taught us how to live, to move slowly, to listen to silence, to love what is brief, because it is beautiful. The Isle of the Dead is not a warning. It's a promise that one day, when the noise fades, we will find ourselves crossing the same dark sea and realize we were never going anywhere. We were always home.